at the end for a Q&A session. So your faces aren't on camera, and then when you ask questions, you know, if they're personal or whatever, it's more private. And that's one of the benefits of coming out, hopefully, is that when you guys have questions, we can go into some stuff like that and everything like that. Okay. I have some celestial blends for sale, doing them for $5. It's the bigger bottles, but I'm not upping the price because I already told you $5, so I'm sticking to that. And what I did was I did celestial heliotrading and looked at like the different planets and how to counteract or like benefit with that. So I looked at the energies that we have on this board, and I did a lot of sense. For example, there's rose water representing Venus, and then I did some to help like stabilize the more aggressive energy and everything like that. But what's really fun about these is they're just roll-ons, and you'll infuse your own essence with them, and if you want to put it on the full moon, it'll change them. But even though I make them all the same, you all like make yours unique. We've tested this because we've went around and I've made these for a couple of months now, and as we've smelt each other from our moon group, and we realize it really does change. So it's really kind of fun. Everything else in there is for free. It's goodies for you to take. There's like buttons, stickers, business cards, all that stuff. And then you all have a monthly calendar. If you need to take notes, there's pens over there too. So that's the housekeeping. Also, if you'll turn your phone ringer down, I would really appreciate that. And then we're good. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. You're recording.
Well, that part you weren't supposed to record, but okay. That's why we're going to edit it. It's cool. We got this. Okay. So I'll look at the camera. Hello! Welcome to Starcast. This is like the first official edition here at SPIRITWORKS. We gave it a test run, and now we're making it a permanent thing. And the intention for this event is just to share the upcoming energies for the month. This is obviously like a general reading. I'm not looking at everybody's personal natal chart, but it helps us realize what the mood of the day is and what it's a good time for and what challenges we're up against in the month of February 2020. But before we go forward, I kind of want to back up and say where we're coming from, because it's really important. These are energies that are still at play. These are things that are still unfolding for us. So I want to go backwards, and I'm going to go backwards with tarot cards as like a visual aid. This isn't like an actual reading or anything like this. This is me using imagery. And I want to take us back. One of the big themes through February is we have a Mercury retrograde. We have these often, but I want to go back to the last one in October, because I feel like that's where the story that we're in right now, it's where it begins. So in the fall, the Mercury retrograde and how things happened was there was a lot of Scorpio energy, and Scorpio is the detective, it's the investigator. And it was really like we were being asked to open a closet door and look at the skeletons. And this was a lot of time when a lot of us experienced dark nights of the soul, and also whenever dark deeds were uncovered. It was an energy that gave voiceless victims their voice, and people to say, this happened to me, and a lot of that energy came up. And then right after we were exposed with all that darkness, we were kind of rushed into, I feel like we were rushed into this Capricorn energy, which is like, okay, now fix it. Now fix it. And we were asked really quickly to go from victim to survivor. And not only that, not only was the door open and all the skeletons were showing, but Capricorn was showing us all the cracks in the foundation. And that was a huge energy as we went through December that came in. At that time, we had an eclipse in Capricorn, and we had a party in Capricorn, which is a stellium when you have multiple planets there. Well, here we are, they're still there. Capricorn's telling us there's still more work to do. It's still exposing more cracks in the system. But at that same time as we went through that energy, what we had is we had a tug of war between Jupiter asking us to expand and Capricorn restricting us. So with Jupiter, I want to show it this card here, which is the World card in tarot. And I want to use this card to represent just kind of change, universal timing of everything. Because at that time, we were going through the ending of a 12-year Jupiter cycle. And that's still going to come, because a lot of you won't feel that until the spring. That's when that'll really kick in. Some people already feel it, but some of it's still coming. So we have Jupiter saying expand, and I'm going to change your luck after this 12-year cycle. But we also have Saturn, restricting us, and karma coming into play. So it's a real tug of war, but it's also an ending and a beginning, because with this Capricorn Saturn thing, that's the end of a 35-year cycle. So things change, luck changed, that all came into play. And one of the things we're going to get to here, actually I'm going to save the rest of these. I'm going to play in the rest of these. But the other card I really wanted to share was the Hangman and the idea of suspension, like you just wait. Whenever we have all the planets direct, we just want to go forward motion. And it's like, okay, we've seen the problem, now let's fix it. And as we came into January, everybody was raring to go. But you can't. There was something holding us all back. We all wanted to move forward. We wanted to do this. Something was preventing all of us from doing it. And it felt restricted. So we were in the state of suspension. This is going to continue into this month, that feeling, unfortunately. And that's something else that we had and we went into. So we had, around Christmas, we had the Capricorn eclipse. And to me, that's just shining light, full illumination. If you didn't see the cracks in the foundation, now you do. Then we come into January and we have eclipse in Capricorn. We have an eclipse in Cancer. And Cancer is not earth energy, it's watery. So as we're thinking, I need to do this and I need to do this, and Capricorn's worried about status and reputation, that January Cancer eclipse was like, look at your home life. How are things going at home? How do you feel nurtured? Do you nurture yourself? Do you nurture others? And that's conflicting. Just like the other planets are going back and forth. That's that push-pull. So in January, I think a lot of us are coming out where we're like, I don't have that work-life balance I need. Or I'm not as focused at that. Or we're seeing the things that are unhappy in our home. And we're coming into that. It's a lot of things that we're going into February with. There's a lot of energy there already. But the good news is how it ended. We had the new moon in Aquarius, which to me, as we get into this, we're going to go a little bit to the Saturn Capricorn thing. This is saying it's end and not, it's like enough, never again. Everything corrupt is being exposed. We went into all that. That was the January shit show episode, right? We went into all that. What's really beautiful is on Friday, January 25th, we had the new moon in Aquarius. And to me, what this really is, what we're going through, the Saturn-Pluto thing, it's burn it down. If it needs to go, let it go. We're not going to try to fix what's broken. It's just going to go. And what are we being asked to do? Usher in the new age of Aquarius. Time to be determined. But this is that mark. And I think that Aquarius new moon was just bringing in that idea, and it brought in that possibility. And a lot of us started feeling lighter around that time. There was something new that came in, this new light. Then the next day, we had the lunar new moon. So astrologically, that was the end of the lunar astrological year, January 26th. So we're just beginning this new year, and that's what we're going to talk about. So all this energy is what you're coming in to February with, and it just keeps on going. But what I want to do in February is, like, we could go by the day by days, but I have a lot of dates in here. So if you want, just note these down, and also know that I do the weekly forecast blogs on whatthestarsay.com. I go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll guide you through the day-to-day of February and remind you of this. But this is the overall energy, okay? So when I looked at what was going on day by day with all the symbols, this, that, I kept seeing Venus, Mars, Sun, Mercury. I mean, these are the main players this month. And in a way, it's like, well, what am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about the celestial bodies that have all the action going on. So we can focus into these areas really specifically. As we go into the month, we have, Aquarius going into Pisces with the Sun, Pisces, Venus going into Aries, Venus. So we have some shifting, but the main thing is we still have that party in Capricorn. The work is not done yet. We're not allowed to go out and play yet. We still have to build things up. And that's the energy going on right there. So I'm going to give you the bad news, and then at the end I'm going to try to uplift you all and make it seem better, because the thing I noticed from February is what a crappy month for love. This is a really horrible month for love, and we always think of Valentine's Day or Single Words Day. It's really bad. And it's not me being a love hater, because I am a happily married newlywed and everything. it's just the pure aspects of it. So if we go into February and we have Venus trine Jupiter, ooh, expansive, lucky love, you know what I mean? Or we have Venus sextile like Mars, ooh, action and love. We don't have that. We don't have that at all. What we have is an ending and a beginning, because we have Venus going from Pisces, which is the final side of the zodiac, to Aries, which is the beginning sign. Some people will experience an ending and a beginning. This kicks in on February 7th. But the beautiful thing about this energy is, like, if you're trying to get over something, maybe that's when you get over and go, okay, I can feel better now, you know, because you have that new beginning. This will translate to different ways. But the other thing is we also have, on the second, like, we come in really nice. So when Venus is in Pisces, we're all dreamy, we're romantical, we have our head in our clouds. As soon as Venus went to Pisces, I noticed, like, none of us really wanted to work. We lost a lot of motivation. We had Capricorn coming at us, work. And then Venus went to Pisces, and we're like, oh, I just want to daydream and cuddle. And, you know, we were all just kind of like, I don't know, you know. So that happened, and that's a beautiful energy. So for some people, this beginning of February could be beautiful because we have Venus sextile Pluto. And then on the next day, on the 3rd, we have Venus sextile Jupiter. I think we got going on there. This is like love without limitation. This is rebirth. This could be really beautiful energy. And it's Pisces. This is a wonderful 2nd and 3rd, great time for creativity, painting, things of that sort. I know I've got painters in the crowd. Beautiful time. Like, write music, write poetry, like all of that. This is wonderful. So we go in and we're feeling nice. We still got that, dreamy, romantic thing. And then around the 7th, we have that ending and a beginning. We have a change point. On the 10th, we have Venus making a hard aspect to both Chiron, the wounded healer, and the node of the moon. And we have this Mercury retrograde kicking in right after that. The Mercury retrograde kicks in on the 17th. That's a little RX on your calendar thing. So then we go in the Mercury retrograde. We'll get to how that pertains to love and Venus, because it does. It's not just thinking. On the 23rd, Venus squares Jupiter. On the 28th, Venus squares Pluto. This is just crap. This is just like really horrible. For a lot of people, this will be really hard. I'm not saying it's bad for everybody, but this is hard, because what this translates to me is, I wrote, old wounds, new injury.
Oh, good.
So maybe somebody triggers you and they bring up an old hurt, right?
Yeah.
Old wounds, new triggering. That was my interpretation of that whole thing. And that's also happening in a Mercury retrograde, which is just really ripe for miscommunication and misunderstandings.
Yes.
This is a real hard time. And man, it's like, ha suckers, right before Valentine's Day it kicks in. It's like it's a little bit of a joke.
Communicate before the 10th.
Before the 10th. Yes. Oh, for all that. We'll get into that with the retrograde. The other thing is like, down here, I mean, no luck. And then we have Pluto. So if people are in denial about a bad situation they're in, it's gonna really come to a head around the 28th. If you aren't seeing what's there, a lot of people will get a shocker at that time. So at the same time, we switch over. So that's our love. That's our planet of art, creativity, all of that. And then we have Mars, which is our action planet. And I don't have good news here either. So we're getting all the bad news out of the way first, right?
Yes.
And then I'm getting to the hard stuff, and then we shall overcome at the end, right? Okay. So what's going on here is Mars connects to the galactic center February 12th through the 13th. Right after that, Mars enters Capricorn February 16th. So here, Mars is in Sagittarius. This is kind of hard for us because Mars in Sagittarius, that's fire, that's action, I want to go. You know, think of the Fool, like, look before you leap, you know. And you can't really do that when you have the Capricorn energy restricting you. You can't really do that when you're restricted. So for some people, when Mars leaves Sagittarius, goes to Capricorn, it's like, well, at least we're more balanced now. You know, it's all stacked in the Capricorn house, but we'll feel less of that wanderlust, if that makes sense. But Mars is action, you know, rebellion and all that. And the galactic center is source. When something crosses the galactic center, it trickles out. It's a change of consciousness. I really think that whenever we had the crossing of the Galactic Center before, I think it helped our country get over homophobia, big time. I think it's helped us. It's helping us now with transphobia. It's helping us, heal racism of the past. And look at everything like that. So whenever things cross the Galactic Center is really what Me Too time's up about. When it crossed there, it was like, boom, I have a voice, I'm using it. And you did this to, there's a reckoning that happens with it. So I'm not really fond of Mars crossing that with all that energy, because how does that translate? I think for some people, it'll be a wonderful energy. It'll be beautiful to look at the uprising over the world, especially the places that are affected by this Saturn-Pluto conjunction we'll get to. There'll be a beautiful uprising. It will help activists, get their voice, which is so important. It'll be really good. But the other thing you have to remember here is that Mars is, it's ego, it's aggression, it's war, and all of that. That's not so good. So it could go either way, and what we're dealing with here is with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, this is all about top-down authority. So when people are throwing out the word dictator and fascist and things like that, it gets scary on a collective, political level, how that plays out.
What did you call it? Saturn-Pluto what?
That's a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Conjunction. Okay. And that happened on January 12th, but that's something that we're going to feel for years.
Okay.
For years. So then we have, we got Mars in Capricorn square Chiron in Aries.
It's like algebra or something.
So on that, here we have Mars, this action, in Capricorn, where there's all this power, and Jupiter's making this, and this is, control, authority, status, reputation, and it's squaring Chiron, the wounded healer. It's giving that injury to it. In a way, this could be like, suck it to him good. Like those control figures or those dictators of the world. That'll be a fun day to watch. I hope it doesn't play out in our personal lives as much, but on a political level, like if somebody is oppressing people, I hope that kicks in. And then we have a trine to Uranus and Taurus on February 21st. So we have action in this Earth, status-seeking authority, control sign. And I don't mean that offensive to Capricorn, because I'm taking out the qualities, the only qualities that apply here. I don't mean that for all of them. But we have trine Uranus and Taurus, which is the unexpected. And Taurus is earth, it's food supply, things of that sort. So one thing we could have with Uranus and Taurus, it could bring earthquakes, it could bring volcanoes, but it could also bring something to a halt with our food supply, which isn't really good when you look at political things and how things are going out. I think this is going to play out on the political, socio-political level more than it will for individuals, unless they're having a hard aspect. But when Mars enters Capricorn, February 16th, if that's the planet of action, some of those things that we've been hesitant on to take action because we're still stewing or the time doesn't feel right or we felt held back, we will have some forward motion at that time. But it's also happening during Mercury retrograde, so we'll see. I'll give you advice on that. So this Saturn-Pluto conjunction is the shadow side being revealed. It's the corruption being revealed. It's going to go through, it started January 12th. It's going to be really strong for 2 years. But as I was saying, this is the dismantling to usher in the age of Aquarius. That's what's happening here. One of the things I said in my talk there would be amazing discoveries. So I've kind of kept a little eye on the news. There's been huge advances in robotics, in electric vehicles, in health. They're saying they have a cure for cancer now. All these things are coming out. And we figured out this, and we figured out that. So since January 12th, that's unfolding a lot. And then things in D.C. heated up, but now they're not really chilled out. Our president's on trial and for being impeached, so we can't really say that. China still has a lot going on. Chile and Venezuela are also where there's uprising. So this energy could bring attention to the political situations there and what's going on. But this entire cycle right here is a paradigm shift. It's gone with top-down authority. It's gone with people saying that they know what's best for other people. It's a lot of that. Anything that's broken is being exposed and dismantled. And it very much is a power to the people energy.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. If it's not working for us, it's going out. So all of this is at play at the same time. And I think that the Mars energy will connect to that. And it'll be really interesting. If people are really hesitating, that galactic center crossing could give them a boost. And the Capricorn thing could help give them a boost to build that. Okay, I thought about what's broken and what I need to rebuild. Now I can start rebuilding it. That will help. But we also have to keep in mind the retrograde. So there's the caution right there. Okay, so to get to the retrograde, because this really is, I think, the big thing of February. 40% of the people they're born during a retrograde, so it doesn't really affect them. It's pretty easy on them, which is nice. But it's helpful to know even if you are that 40%, because then you can have more compassion and understanding to everybody around you. So with the retrograde, the October one, I greatly underestimated the shadow phase, and I'm not going to do that again. I'm just going to go ahead and say that, because all the energy is accelerated. I think even in my weekly forecast, we're about 2 days ahead, energy-wise, like it's happening faster. So this shadow period, I'm saying the shadow period is around like the 5th. It really goes, they say it's retrograde on the 17th, but I think around the 5th, and definitely the 10th. So I'm kind of saying February 10th to March 10th, just to play it safe. So this will be interesting because we talked about Aquarius and Pisces cups. So we have an audience member here that'll be interested in that. So Mercury in Pisces, I would like you to view as impressionistic painting. Just think of impressionism, okay? Mercury in Aquarius, think of innovation, futuristic, high tech, out there. You know what I mean? It's going to go, to just explain this, because retrogrades are like, you're going around the track, right? And then all of a sudden, the fastest car in the race, which is Mercury, because it goes the fastest, it just slams on its brakes. And here we are on Earth, and we keep going, right? It's like, where did the fastest rider go, right? So it stopped, and then it's not like it really goes backwards. It doesn't really happen. So as you'll see, Mercury has a weird orbit all of its own. It's a fast planet. It's a really unique planet. February 3rd, Mercury's in Pisces. February 5th, a second. Wait. It goes back and forth. I'm sorry, y'all. So we go Pisces, and then we go Aquarius. Hang on, I print notes on this, because this is really wacky. So these two are going to go back and forth from impressionism and, dreaminess and all of that, and intuitiveness and consciousness, and all that, to very futuristic, very quirky, very far out and out there and everything like that. They don't really go together. What I think is going to happen on this is that when we're going through Aquarius, I suspect people are going to have what you call analysis paralysis. And that's how that's going to be felt. When people, and also too, or some people that you think are like normally weird, they'll be really weird to the point where you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And maybe people that aren't that weird, suddenly you're like, what happened to them? I don't know. I think they're on the crazy. You won't know, because we'll be either so head in the clouds, daydreamy, that we just don't make sense to somebody who's in reality, or we're going to be so far out, we don't make sense to someone who's in reality. It's like you kind of can't win for losing with this one in a lot of ways. So what happens is, let me find my notes because it goes back and forth and back and forth. So Mercury enters Pisces February 3rd. Mercury trines Uranus on February 5th. And that is, I think, really complementary to what I was saying about the beginning of the month and the 3rd, about how that's great for creativity. It's great for artists. So that's a really good time. So around that beginning, that first week, we're good. We're really good right there. But when it gets weird is when it goes, like, by the 7th, it goes into Pisces, and by the 7th, it's back into Aquarius, and then a few days later, it's back into Pisces. And it does this entire back and forth throughout this retrograde period. March 5th, it's back into Aquarius, The February 29th, Pisces, with Neptune. That February 29th, the last day, it's so funny because it's a leap year. Another joke. Besides a really crappy Valentine's Day,
a day longer.
the cosmos is giving you a leap year day that I wrote down as fog machine, because not only will you have Mercury in Pisces, it's going to join Neptune, which is like beyond foggy.
I'll be in Portland.
Fog machine. You just space out in Portland. Just space out in Portland that day, because no one's going to be thinking really clear. It's not a good time for deep discussions and everything. So basically what's going to happen during this retrograde, I'm sad to say, is that we're, depending on how you handle like a lot of watery energy, this is like watery emotional energy like that. You know what I mean? It's not pretty. It's like an ugly cry energy. Like if I could describe it. Misunderstood is how most of us are going to feel. Miscommunication is going to be the norm of the day. But what's also interesting is every Mercury retrograde this year is all in water signs. So water signs, let's think about that. We're being asked to go back and look at something. And what's cool about that is, look at all that earth energy. It's just so practical and so practical. This retrograde is our chance to kind of be weird and have our heads in the clouds and just go back and just be an emotional, feeling human being. It's when you're trying to be practical and communicating on the board with people, that's when it's going to get messy. But when you're alone, it's going to be fantastic. So what I really suggest to do at this time is use a retrograde like you should. Revise, review, allow yourself to get, your heads in the clouds and just daydream about things. Even though you're going to feel this like spurt of action or wanting to go forward, I absolutely do not advise people just to like rush forward in anything right now. To go back to things, you're still in a state of suspension, and it's going to be really easy to tell whenever it's time to act. So March 10th, Mercury goes direct, and then we have spring shortly after. So you're planting the seeds now. And don't worry if anybody thinks you're weird, because you're not bringing your art out into the world yet. You know what I mean? You haven't blossomed yet or anything like that. You're just planting a seed, and then it'll come up in a little bit. So if you can go within and just use this time to be creative and work on something and hibernate, like winter asked us to do, it asked us to go within, and it's a great time for artists. They go in, they create, and in the spring they bring it out. Even if you're a business person and you have like a plan, you got to keep it to yourself until you're ready to go forward. So I really suggest that we hibernate, we incubate, and then as spring truly comes in, then woo, we just let go. Because that's what the energy is really saying here, especially with this retrograde. We have the retrograde on the 17th, but it's in the shadow phase. The February 9th is the fog machine, and then March 5th it goes back into Aquarius. But going back between those two is not a great, you're going between air, water, air, water, air, water, air, water, while you're being, bombarded with earth energy. This is not an easy month in a big way. So one thing I want to say is that, and I'm going to tie this in with the moon and everything like that, look at this as you're being asked to put your head and your heart and your future all in the same, to align them all, because that's kind of what's happening here. This is your head, this is your heart, this is your future. That's what you're building up. So if you can look at it that way and kind of compartmentalize it, it'll help you get through the weirdness a bit. What's also beautiful here is that we have some wonderful things going on with the sun. I personally think so. So we're going from Aquarius to Pisces. The sun's moving over here. And look, Mercury's moving over there too. So how does data travel? It travels on light. The sun's giving us light. It's giving us downloads. It's giving us data. New information's coming in. And what does Mercury rule? The thinking process. So at least those two are hanging out together. They're aligned more. We have the sun trine Uranus on February 22nd. That's a great day to have some unexpected idea, like just have something like a flash of light, something come to you that you've just really been struggling with.
February what? Did you say the date for that?
February 22nd.
22nd.
Sun trines Uranus.
I'll be at a casino that day.
Oh, that's
I know. That's why I wondered. Oh my God,
that's
it's
some
gonna be too much for me.
That's great energy.
Gamble more. Gamble more.
Hey, I'm gonna write that down. Go to
That's
the
a good one.
casino.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah.
It's my birthday weekend, so we're gonna be.
Yes.
We're going.
So
Right,
on the
February
25th, the sun trines Mars. So that's a good day for action. If you got to do something during this retrograde and all that, the February 25th is great. The sun has a harder angle to the on the 26th. I really just think the end of the month is going to be really difficult. We will all meet back here again and see how we did, but it's just going to be a little bit difficult. The other thing is the moon. We have a full moon in Leo, February 9th, and the new moon in Pisces, February 23rd.
Wait a minute. It says 8th on here. Is there? It's like in that day. It's
So the 8th, yeah,
late
it is.
after midnight or something.
Yeah, depending where you're at. But I think for us it's going to be about 11:33 on the 8th here.
Okay,
Yeah.
11:33 p.m. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So on this one too, what I think is going on here with the full moon in Leo, this is like that Cancer one because Leos love creativity, kids, family, home, and all that stuff. I think that it's a great day to shine, to bring shine to somebody else. It's a great day to go to that part where you're like, but what about my home life? What's going on there? How's my balance there and everything? And then, what else is happening on Fahrenheit? So that's when we went into Aries. So we've got the planet of love and the moon in fire signs. Maybe because it's okay. It's not later in the month. That's when it's getting hard. And then the new Pisces moon is February 23rd. So guess what? We've got the moon and Mercury going on in Pisces. That's very, very water energy, which is it's really difficult for some people. That's going to be a little different for some people. Again, this is like home and hearth. In the midst of all this work and all this building and all this energy and all this political upheaval on a level, these moons and these eclipses and everything, they're asking you to look back at what you really value. Like, what's the point of it all? What do you really cherish? This is also, all full moons are about completion, but with the Leo energy, it's also about courage. So if you're trying to get the courage to get something done, this is a good energy there. And then the moon also trines this full moon. So this is courage meets action. Leo's courage, Mars's action. And a great way to describe this would be like the hero's journey. This is some heroic, energy happening on this time, which is great because we need that at this time. For overall, retrogrades aren't a time to start something new. It's a time to go back. But you're lucky because you're squeezing it in before that kicks in, like right before it kicks in and everything. So it'd be great just to get to the finish line and give yourself that deadline before the